it's such a unique situation. It's not Notre Dame, and it's not the lesser independent teams, the military academies, and pretty much all the independents in college football have been squeezed out, excluding those couple that I mentioned, including BYU. But the Cougars continue to thrive. They continue to get it done. They continue to schedule an extremely difficult schedule that included the likes of Mississippi State and Michigan State coming off, of course, a college football playoff appearance, and that opening run against basically a Pac-12 schedule, UCLA, Arizona, Utah, and surviving that and winning the games that you're supposed to win, taking on a fine Toledo team. It's an impressive and entertaining schedule that the Cougars always put together.
It really is. This is year 6 of independence, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic this season because now the dangling carrot that was always out there about going to the Big 12, that's now put to rest. The Big 12 obviously staying at their 10 members for the foreseeable future, at least till 2025. BYU is now going to be digging deep into independence because independence was always viewed as an opportunity to be a launching point to a Power 5 league. Well, now that's off the table for at least 10 years. And BYU, I think, has carved out a nice little niche, being that maybe team that's not quite Power 5, but they're also not Group of 5 either, kind of like what you were highlighting there. I think that's pretty much where they are. And they're going to challenge themselves with Kalani Sitake. In year 1 with Kalani being a first-time head coach, I thought he did a very nice job for this BYU team. 8-4 against a very competitive schedule. Yes, it eased up in the month of November, but that first 8 weeks, I would stack that up against anyone in any league. That was a really good schedule. And BYU was right there in every single game this season. They only lost by a total of 8 points in their 4 games this year. So I think that there's exciting times ahead for BYU. I think BYU fans were rejuvenated with Kalani Sitake getting hired. There was a little bit of sense of apathy, an apathetic approach with fans with Bronco Mendenhall. I think Kalani's re-energized the fan base, and I think it's also re-energized the team. He's a player's coach, and I think this effort was shown on the field this year in year 1.
So it sounds like the fan base is satisfied with 8 wins and 4 losses, considering, again, it's a very odd schedule because there's a couple cakewalks there late in the season, but a very stacked schedule early on coming from schools all over the country in different Power 5 conferences. So pretty satisfied with 8-4?
I think so. I think that, when you had Taysom Hill coming in at a quarterback who hadn't played in about 13 months, and I thought he did an okay job as the quarterback. He obviously suffered a season-ending injury in the season finale against Utah State with an arm injury. 4th time in 5 years Taysom Hill suffered a season-ending injury. How crazy is that? But, you got to look at the staff across the board. First-time offensive coordinator in Ty Detmer, 1990 Heisman Trophy winner there with Ty. Lucky first-time defensive coordinator. So you're talking about guys that were new to their roles, taking over a team that was looking to compete with a really, like you said, a kind of unique schedule, stride for stride. And I think that they're feeling good about what lies ahead, and there's can be tougher schedules in the future. Next year you got LSU, Wisconsin, Utah, 3 teams that are in the college football playoff, top 25 right now. Tough road ahead for BYU as an independent, but they're excited about what they're doing, and I think they're developing kind of that old school approach with BYU under Lavelle Edwards, where you're going to have good quarterback play, you're going to have good big offensive linemen that are going to be next level talents, and then also have a stingy enough defense to give you chances to win ball games.
Mitch Harper joining us from 1320 KFAN, setting us up for BYU's date with Wyoming coming up next week in the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. Mitch, I admittedly say this with a level of ignorance, but based from an outside perspective, considering what Tanner Mangum accomplished in 2015, coming out of the Mission, not much practice time, gets off the deck against Nebraska on the road, the next week against Boise State, pulls off a considerable upset there, almost pulls off the upset at the Rose Bowl against UCLA, just had a tremendous season passing the football. Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I mean,
the choice again this year. I just didn't really understand it myself. Was there just that much respect in that clubhouse, in that locker room, for Taysom Hill?
I think you hit it on the head, Mark. I mean, it was respect. I mean, Taysom Hill is kind of someone that's kind of a legend of sorts at BYU, and it's unique because when you think BYU football, you think of all those great quarterbacks of yesteryear: Jim McMahon, Steve Young, Robbie Bosco, Ty Detmer, Steve Sarkisian. There's been so many great quarterbacks to come through BYU, and Taysom Hill is just such a unique moments when he was healthy. He was so dynamic and so great. Think of those Texas wins, 259 yards against Texas back in 2013, basically sealed Mac Brown's fate in Provo. I mean, Taysom Hill, when healthy, he was one of the most dynamic players in all of college football. And I think there was that feeling that, there was confidence in what he had been, or the respect that he had built at BYU. I think they wanted to give him one more chance. And I think it was a unique, delicate situation for Kalani Sitake and Ty Detmer because they didn't want to lose the locker room. It's year one. They're guys that are still trying to prove their credibility with a football team that's embracing a new head coach, but they didn't want to lose that credibility and maybe lose a locker room. So it was a delicate balance, and I think they wanted to give Taysom the chance to start because I think they felt that he gave them the best chance to win because he could bring in that running element that Tanner Mangum just simply doesn't have. And BYU's offensive line, only two guys that were starters on this offensive line had D1 offers. I mean, you're talking about an offensive line that had three guys that were either transfers from the FCS level or former walk-ons. So they didn't have much talent from, the recruiting ranks coming out of high school. So with that in mind, the lack of depth of that position, they had to have a quarterback that was mobile and could, elude this pressure that was they were going to face against these Power 5 teams early on in the schedule. Now, as a thrower, yes, Tanner Mangum is definitely the better passer, but I just think the whole resume, the whole body of work, they wanted to give Taysom Hill one more shot. It's something that could have been debated. I mean, you go back to that UCLA game in week 3, Taysom was really, for lack of a better term, pretty bad. That was the chance for Kalani to pull the plug and go with Tanner, but they stayed the course, and I think that was the right move, and it worked out kind of brilliant for BYU because now, I mean, you hate to see Taysom be injured, but now, Tanner Mangum gets a chance to play a game before 2017, run this pro-style offense, and see what he can do and start to build some momentum for next season.
Hey, Mitch, if we look at recent BYU Bowl history, a lot of dates with the Pac-12, a number of sexier matchups, of course, when you're playing the likes of Washington and UCLA. You, of course, had the renewal of the Holy War against Utah in postseason play in a very close game down the stretch last season at the Las Vegas Bowl. Does this fan base get excited about a matchup with Wyoming?
I think they kind of do. Wyoming is an old school WAC Mountain West rival. It's BYU fans, they want to see themselves stacked up against Power 5 teams. So the programs you were mentioning, those would be the ideal type of programs that they'd want to, stack themselves up against. But again, BYU being an independent, they usually tie down their bowl agreements far in advance. I mean, we already know where BYU is going to be going in 2018 and 2019. So that just kind of gives you some perspective of how unique BYU's independent path is. So it is what it is, and I think that they knew going into the season they were going to play a Mountain West team. Why not play a team that you had some old history with in Wyoming? And hey, they're a pretty good football team. They beat Boise State, a team that BYU couldn't beat, and they got a good running back in Brian Hill, the Pokes do. So there's going to be a lot of emotion, especially from the Wyoming side. I think BYU fans are warming up to a little bit. About 10,000 tickets have been sold by BYU fans. I think you're going to see a lot of BYU fans from the Southern California area, a strong Mormon LDS contingency of BYU fans down in that area. I don't know if you'll see many folks from Salt Lake travel to the game, but I think BYU fans are embracing it, and I think it's a chance to get a 9th win. And that, again, is just to try and end a bowl losing streak that they've had since 2012.
As we mentioned off the top, an interesting program, unique to college football, and also a very exciting and entertaining team. BYU Wyoming getting together in San Diego at the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. Mitch Harper from KFAN 1320 joining us to set us up Mitch, we appreciate the time, man.
Hey, always happy to do it, Mark. Talk to you soon.